something needs to change if you want to get back with your ex, and I'm going to explain you what needs to shift. We're not going to talk about no contact. We're not going to talk about finding a new hobby type of tips. We're going to look at a holistic approach if you want to get back with your ex, and we're going to talk about Steve Jobs as well. You'll see, jingle.
IGetMyExBack.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.
A breakup is extremely hard to manage for everyone, especially if you didn't take the decision to end the relationship. You need to adjust to a new life. When you come from a place as, or a life when you shared your house, you shared your life with your spouse, perhaps you have kids, perhaps you're married, but everything, most of your life was revolving around that partner. Sometimes it's healthy, sometimes it's toxic because too much of it, and we create a strong form of codependency which is unhealthy. Sometimes it's healthy because you need to depend on someone. When you are in a relationship, you also need to be able to share, you need to be able to ask for help to your partner. And so this is why now you're affected and you want to improve your watching video because you want to know what to do, you want to improve and grow and become the best version of yourself. This is a good sign. It's a good sign because you are amongst the perhaps minority of people who want to take action. And so first of all, well done to you, and you'll see, I'm pretty sure you're going to learn a lot today. When breakups are easy, because sometimes they're easy to deal with. You've probably I had a few myself. When you break up with someone and that wasn't the right partner. You didn't feel anything, or they didn't feel anything. You are not compatible. Perhaps, and that's a possibility. Perhaps your ex thinks the same. One way to know whether you're not creating wrong story. We're going to talk about story in a minute. Have a look at the quiz in the description that will tell you if you have any chance to get back with your ex. It's going to basically assess the strengths of the relationship. I can't make your ex love you. I can't make anyone fall in love. What I can do is I can ensure that all the things that prevent you from being together are gone. And we're going to look at how to do it in a minute. First of all, a very interesting concept. It's a reality distortion field. And it's a concept that has been, so reality distortion, we're going to look about distortion in a minute, but RDF is basically how people perceive working with Steve Jobs. Was very inspirational, who was kind of the person who would tell you the sky is the limit, right? And the 10 seconds story is one of his engineers. He wanted to speed up the processing power of one of his Macintosh back in the days. And he said to his engineer, I want to save 10 seconds of processing power. How can you do it? And the guy replied but I can't. It's too much. It's impossible. And he said what if I tell you that you need this to save someone's life? You need to ensure that you can save someone's life. And he did the math. It's X million of computer, saving 10 seconds. It's basically 100 lives. So what about now? And because of this shift in the reality, the guy saw the solution, saw that it could be possible, and saw the impact it could make. And so people working with him were sort of influenced as if he was casting a spell on everyone like a guru, because he has this vision and giving you a reality that would basically give the best of yourself. So I wanted to introduce this concept because we're going to talk about distortion in a minute, but I thought the story of Steve Jobs was an interesting one. We are the stories we tell ourselves. It's so important for you to understand this. You are the result of what you are telling yourself before the breakup, during your relationship, and after the breakup. And the reason you're trying to get back with your ex is about the story you're telling yourself. The reason you're struggling to deal with the breakup is because of the story you're telling yourself. And we're going to look at how you can shift and how you can change this. How can you change in one day? That's the problem of a breakup. From one day to another, We are a spouse, a husband, a wife, to become someone single. From being loved to being rejected. From being driven by the relationship, having sort of a routine, to completely lost and confused. But if you think about that, what has changed fundamentally between the day before the breakup and the day after your partner broke up with you? Nothing. You haven't changed a lot, right? The circumstances changes. Your environment changes. Your ex might have changed, but not in a day. Okay? And so really understand that the person you are now is very similar to the person who was in a relationship just before you guys broke up. However, the way you feel about it is totally different because the story you're telling yourself is different. I'm going to explain you, it's going to be very practical on how you could do this. The value battle. The problem with breakup is that when someone decides to end a relationship, it creates a form of rejection, and the rejection pushes our value down. As we are not feeling loved, as we don't feel important, we feel like we are useless in a way. Because, belonging, being in a relationship is a sense of being important, being useful as well. Unless you raise that level of confidence, this value, you will never get back with your ex. And it is the number one mistake people make, is they think of shortcuts, they think about no contact, they think about many things, but they forget to recognize that the stories they are telling themselves have changed. And if you want to get back with your ex, you have to be really confident and really empowered by the fact that you can master this storyline, this narrative. Is it guaranteed if you change this? No. I can't guarantee whether you're going to get back with your ex. What I can guarantee you is that there's so many things that could have been unaddressed from your childhood, from different relationships, and now it's an opportunity for you to address those things, to look at those insecurities and tackle them for good. So how does that work? Cognitive distortion now. It's a concept that is used in therapy, especially in CBT. I'm going to introduce you how it works. Here are typical, the most famous, the most common cognitive distortion, and you might tick some of them, but you recognize yourself, and this is how we deal, how we change our perception of the reality from one day before the breakup to one day after the breakup. The all or nothing type of distortion. So the need to be perfect. It's either it works or I'm a loser. The mental filtering, focusing on the glass half empty, and really discounting any positive signs, any positive news. The overgeneralization. When you experience a single event, i.e., you had one relationship and you broke up with that relationship and you feel like I'm never going to meet someone ever. Jumping to conclusion. So it's really about making assumptions. If he's not talking to me, if he's not answering my message, therefore he doesn't like me, I need to move on. There's so many things that people create sort of scenarios in their head, like mind reading, and that, my friend, is the worst if you want to be secure, if you want to deal with your anxiety. Catastrophizing, it's about exaggeration. Personalizing, it's less so applicable to breakups, but it's assuming that you've been targeted. Like if there's a problem with people in a group, they're pointing fingers at me, they are targeting me. And blaming, which is the other way around, is holding others responsible for your pain. Okay, these are the classic cognitive distortion. Is basically taking a fact, taking a reality, but adding a filter that makes you feel anxious, that makes you feel less confident, that makes you feel less empowered and the value decreased. So the insecurities and belief system, which is really what we want to look at. Here, if we look at an example, we have the core belief, activating event, thoughts, emotion, behavior. So that's the structure of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Here, in your case, could be, I will be abandoned. So these are the insecurities that we talked about that you need to deal with now. There's a triggering event, the breakup. But you need to proactively look at the core belief that's behind. The core belief that now is taking place, now leading your stories on why it's hard for you to deal with the breakup. And so the thoughts, so activating events, the thought is there. If they broke up, it's because I'm not good enough. Again, that's an example. You have different type of thoughts. Emotions, how you feel right now, depressed, anxious, so many, angry. And the behavior, and this is what matters. Withdrawal, being clingy, when you isolate yourself. The problem is, if you don't tackle the core belief at the source, you're never going to have the right behavior, the right attitude. You're not going to make the right action. So it's very important for you to, of course, the breakup, you can't change it, but what you can change is look at the core belief. And actually this slide is quite confusing because it should be arrows from the top to the bottom. So it's really a process, and we all go through this process every single day. One way to understand that you're starting to triggering this kind of event is when you target emotion, you feel like, oh, I feel like this. And then you reverse engineer and try to look at what's above. I feel anxious. So what is going on in my head? And then what was the triggering event? I felt anxious because I had this chat with someone. So what does that mean? What's the core belief? And you have to really exercise yourself to challenge those things. I'm going to leave in the description some additional thing for you to look at, for you to train yourself. You can do it on your own, you can do it with someone. And that's why I think it's so important to consider therapy. This is what I introduced, like CBT framework. The pain that you experience right now comes from a belief that you're probably not aware of. These stuff are quite unconscious. The idea is really try not to fall into the quick fix strategies where like no contact, find a new hobby, go out with friends, go on holidays, change haircuts. Of course it's going to make you feel good, but it's not going to address the root cause of your pain. It's a little bit like when I'm telling you, you don't want to lose weight. Okay, I'm going to give you, because you have eating disorder, for example, I'm going to give you a plan for you to eat healthy food. It's not going to work because the problem of eating disorder is not about you don't know how to cook. Everyone knows that eating burgers for every meal is unhealthy is why you're struggling. Why, when you have this anxiety, this stress, your default to, okay, I need to have a burger, I need to have a cookie, I need to have a bagel or a donut or whatever. In order to be, and I think I've studied that because I used to do that in the past, if you want to have a successful diet, less than 50% is about the food itself. Most of it is about the mindset. And if you want to lose weight, you should read this book, Intuitive Eater. It's a really good book about diet, which is actually not a diet, and if you want to lose weight and be healthy. And so learn about CBT because, again, most of the pain and also what you learn through CBT will be really transformative because you're going to address those beliefs and helping you see things differently. It doesn't have to be with me. Google CBT, find a local therapist where you live, find someone online, who cares, but really try to, rather than looking at quick fixes, try to see how, today it's your day to really address those things. Because this breakup is only an activating event. There's a lot of things potentially that happened in the past that you haven't addressed, that you haven't solved, that needs to be solved. If you want to get back with your ex, you have to sort this out first. I'm going to leave, as I said, some stuff in the comment section and the course. I will probably release the course the next few days. Most of the course will be free. So have a look, access the course. There will be plenty of workbooks and things for you to get started and perhaps journaling and playing with this framework that I discussed in this video. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to comment. I'll see you next time. Bye.
For a long time, get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer.